Find the missing side of a right triangle. I would start off with labeling each side of the triangle relative to the angle that you have. So we have this 27-degree angle on this side. So the opposite angle, opposite side of it is this x. So this will be opposite. And then the hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. So this is the right angle. So opposite of it, this would be the hypotenuse. And then the last angle will be adjacent, so it's not opposite or the hypotenuse, so this would be the adjacent angle. So now we want to find either the sine, the cosine, or the tangent of this 27-degree angle based on the sides we have. So we don't have any information on this hypotenuse, so we don't want to use one of those. So one of my tricks is sine is so, cosine is ka, and tangent is toa. So ka toa. So now that we know that this hypotenuse has no information, so we'll disregard anything with an h because that represents hypotenuse. So we're not using sine or cosine. And since toa has adjacent opposite, which is the two sides we have, we're going to be using tan, the tan function on our calculator for the hypotenuse. For the 27-degree angle. So I'm going to do that on my calculator. And I've done that. And so the tan of 27 degrees, tan of 27 degrees is equal to 0.5095. And now that we have that, we're going to be putting this over 1 and equaling that to, since TOA is opposite over adjacent, we're going to be doing the opposite, which is x, over the adjacent, which is 10. And we'll solve for this, so we'll cross multiply. So we have x equals 0.5095 times 10. And that comes out to be 5.095. And then I'm going to round that to the nearest tenth, so that would be 0.51. And that is x. So that would be the opposite side is the length is 5.1 units. To find the missing angle of a right triangle using trigonometry, I first will label all the sides of the right triangle relative to the angle we'll be finding. So the opposite side to the angle we are finding is this 51. So I'll label this opposite. And then the hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. So this is the hypotenuse. And then the one that are neither of those relative to this angle is always the adjacent side. So that's the adjacent side. So now that we have our sides labeled, we want to determine which of the sine, cosine, and tangent we'll be using. I use a trick that starts with, first we write all of this the functions, so sine, cosine, and tangent, and then there's a saying so, ka, toa, and these represent all the sides and what function you should use if you have those sides. So this one is opposite and hypotenuse, adjacent hypotenuse, and opposite adjacent. And so that means that would be opposite over hypotenuse to find sine. So we have the hypotenuse and we have the opposite, and this is opposite hypotenuse, so we'll be using sine. So sine is equal to the opposite side, so that's 51 over hypotenuse, which is 55. And I'm going to do that out, and I got the sine is 0.9275. 2. So now we have the sine of this angle. We want to use our inverse sine function on our calculator, and that will give us the angle. So I'm going to do that on my calculator. And so the inverse sine of that, sine -1 of 0.9272 is equal to 68.0024. Now that's not exact, that's just about estimation. And I'm going to round this to the nearest tenth. So this would be sine inverse is 68.0. So just 68, and that is the measure of the angle, this angle right here. So this would be 68 degrees. And that's how you find the missing angle of a right triangle using trigonometry.